The last bus. It was late. Hong hurriedly walked to the bus stop, hoping to catch the last bus home. She had just finished work late, the road home was deserted, only a few street lights flickering in the dark. When she arrived at the stop, she breathed a sigh of relief when she saw bus number 23 slowly approaching. Luckily, if she missed this bus, she would have to wait until morning. Hong got on the bus. It was dark inside, with only a few people sitting around. There was something strange about the atmosphere on the bus. It was colder than usual, even though there was no wind outside. She chose a seat near the window and sat down. The bus started moving. Looking around, Hong noticed that the passengers on the bus were strangely silent. No one was talking, no one was looking at their phones, just sitting motionless, eyes staring straight ahead. She felt a little creepy. But perhaps they were as tired after a long day as she was. Hong turned to the window, watching the streets pass by in the darkness. But then, she suddenly realized something was wrong. The streets outside. Over and over again. At first, she thought it was just her eyes. But after observing carefully, she realized that the car had passed the same grocery store and the same electric pole 3 times. She began to worry. Why was the car going in circles like this? She glanced at the driver. It was a thin man, wearing an old uniform, his face hidden by a low-slung baseball cap. He said nothing, just drove silently, his eyes fixed on the road ahead. Unable to bear this strangeness any longer, Hong decided to stand up and approach the driver. "Sir, is this car going to Nguyen Tray area?" There was no answer. She asked again, louder this time. "Driver, I want to get off at the next stop." But the driver still did not respond at all. A feeling of unease rose in her heart. Hong turned to look at the other passengers, hoping someone would help. But when she looked closely, she was suddenly stunned. All the passengers on the bus were staring at her. No one said a word, only cold, lifeless eyes were directed at her. Hong trembled. She was sure that when she got on the bus, no one paid attention to her. But now, every gaze on the bus was glued to her as if she did not belong here. She quickly backed away, her heart pounding. "Is anyone listening to me?" she shouted. No one responded. She hurriedly ran to the back of the bus, pressing the stop button. But no matter how hard she pressed, the bus did not slow down. Suddenly, a dry, click sound came from the car. The glass window next to her suddenly rolled down slowly, even though she hadn't touched it. A cold wind blew in. And then, from the reflection, Hong saw something. Right behind her, there was a tall, dark figure, standing silently. It wasn't a passenger. It had no face. She screamed, turned around quickly, but there was no one behind her. Hong panicked, turned back to look at the window. That dark figure was still standing there. It could only be seen through the glass. Hong shouted loudly, ran straight forward, and hit the driver's shoulder hard. "Uncle, let me off. Please, I want to get off." This time, the driver finally turned his head. And Hong almost fainted when she saw his face was completely blank. No eyes. No nose. No mouth. Just a cold, smooth patch of skin. She screamed, her whole body trembling as she backed away. At the same time, the bus suddenly shook violently, as if something huge had hit it from the outside. The door suddenly opened. Without thinking, Hong rushed out, falling onto the road. She frantically got up, turned around to look. The bus was still there. But what terrified her the most were the passengers inside. They all sat still, their eyes staring blankly outside. And then, one by one, they began to disappear, as if they had never existed. In less than 10 seconds, the bus was completely empty. No one was left. The driver also disappeared. The bus was still parked quietly by the side of the road, the engine off. Hong collapsed, gasping for breath. She didn't know how long she had been sitting there, until a police car passed by and stopped. A policeman got out, worriedly asking, "Girl, are you okay? Why are you sitting here in the middle of the night?" Hung trembled and pointed at the bus. "That bus." The policeman turned to look. But there was no bus. Hung froze. The bus had disappeared. The policeman looked at her with suspicion, but after seeing that she was so scared that she couldn't speak, he sighed. "You must be having a panic attack. Let me take you home." Hung nodded silently, but in her heart she knew very well, what she had experienced was real. And from that night on, she never took the last bus again.